You talk to people in this field all day long, ideally, right? What are you hearing? What could be relevant for other people?
I'm closing here for the sale on that one. Will you do that for me, Lena? Will you go on? You'll give me some notes on that one. Much appreciated.
Offer value, offer help, don't sell.
Yes.
Whatever you do, don't pitch.
Welcome to the Channel Zone. Today we have Lena Weber-Reid with us. Lena is a social media strategist. For those that didn't see me there, I actually did the old air quotes, which I like. A lot of people kind of don't. But anyway, a social media strategist. What a fantastic area to be in at this moment in time. Lena, say hello to the audience, but at the same time, can you just give us some indication, a little bit of background story as to how you got into social? So over to you.
Thanks for having me today, Mark. So yeah, as I said, I'm a social media strategist. I actually started out in PR and corporate comms. That's kind of where I spent the first few years of my career, about 15 years ago. So I've been in marketing for a long time. And it's sort of roughly probably about 12, 13 years ago when companies kind of discovered, if you like, and I've mainly worked in B2B, but it's when companies discovered the power of social media and they realized they really had to get involved. So I kind of, at that point, pivoted over to social media. I've always been a really avid social media user. I'm chronically on social media all day long.
I just point out there, Lena, we're recording this at 9 a.m, but I've already seen you were posting at 8 this morning with a really very comprehensive, very lengthy post that I thought was fantastic. So I've engaged with that as well. So I've not heard the term chronic user before, but I think, I get it.
Yeah. I just can't stop. But so I kind of pivoted into social media, and I've stayed in that aspect of marketing ever since. But because social media is embedded in all other aspects of marketing, I've kind of had sort of my tentacles into other elements and to bring it in together and to kind of integrate it into a cohesive picture. What's really important for me is that social media is embedded strategically in a business. It's not an add-on. It's something that you align with your commercial vision and your commercial ambition. That's when social media really makes sense and starts to deliver.
Gotcha. So the other element, I think, is it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. So it must be, very engaging for you as an individual kind of in this world. There's always kind of whether AI is about to make its impact presence known within social. My guess is it will. But is there anything in particular that's exciting you topic-wise within, kind of social media strategy at the moment? What's the latest big thing for you in terms of exciting you?
I'm not sure there is like a really sort of big thing or new things. You mentioned AI. AI has been part of social for a while now, and it is already changing especially how content is being produced and created. There's some really fantastic AI tools out there. For example, when you think about social listening, so listening in on people's conversations around topics like your brand or your product or your core area that really interests you, AI tools have really taken this to a completely next level where you can kind of follow these conversations and they can be highlighted to you almost in real time, which is a complete game changer, especially in industries where, people, let's take Starbucks, for example. People might go to Starbucks, they buy a coffee, and this AI tool can tell you immediately, hey, someone's posted a picture of themselves with a Starbucks cup. You can now interact with them. This is great. This is completely kind of new territory. I do find this kind of exciting to see how is content creation supercharged, how is engagement and community management supercharged through AI. But the basic principles of social media, I don't think are changing, and they haven't actually changed in the 15 years that I've worked there. It's about your customer and entertaining them and getting good content in front of them that they find relevant. That's all social media has ever been, will ever be, in my opinion.
But you said there, I think I'd not heard the phrase. Did you say social listening? Did you say?
Social listening, yeah.
So again, I'm picking up these terms already. As I said, I've already. You should be charging me. It should be a cost per phrase, really. I've got chronic posting as one, but then you say social listening. I think I can kind of guess, but just a bit more definition on that. How does that work?
It's you have to imagine it a bit like a keyword search, right? So you put in your parameters, your keywords. It could be a brand term, it could be a much broader topic that you're interested in, and then these tools pull up conversations for you. Usually on open social media channels, usually Twitter, and you can also get forums like Reddit. But the challenge is always that a lot of these conversations are happening behind logins, right? So there's another term for you, dark social.
Yes.
Dark social is everything that's kind of behind these logins, conversations you're having with people in private groups, or conversations you're having with people on WhatsApp channels that can't be tracked. So social listening is really important, but it doesn't necessarily surface all of the conversations that are happening that are relevant to you.
And the other kind of social media subcategory in many respects, but in many respects for myself, it's more of a primary category, but is social selling rather than just necessarily social media, given that our audience are predominantly going to be people within the IT ecosystem, predominantly B2B sellers or marketeers. Let's, if we can, kind of pivot a little on to kind of social selling. Again, in that post you put out today, I think you did mention social selling. Actually, I think you said it's not as prevalent as perhaps you think it could or should be. Why do you, and I would agree with you, I think it's, for many organizations, not all, but for many organizations, it's yet to be discovered. They all use LinkedIn. But they don't necessarily use it in anger, and I don't mean in an angry way, but they don't necessarily use it with intent and purpose. But why do you think social selling is perhaps yet to be fully utilized and optimized in B2B?
I think for a variety of reasons. I do generally think people aren't aware of how powerful a tool social selling can be. They just generally don't know. And that's often because social selling in a company is kind of left to the sales organization, right? Sellers come, they buy like a LinkedIn Navigator license. They don't have any training on it. They just have this license and they kind of try and do their best. But, a salesperson isn't necessarily trained on social media engagement. They don't understand how the LinkedIn algorithm works, and they try it and they don't get anywhere after 2 or 3 months, and then they kind of drop it and then they feel it's not worked for them. Social selling works really when you have the right kind of salespeople and you have the marketing support behind them to train them up, to help them optimize their LinkedIn profile, to really give them guidance on how the algorithm works, to give them guidance on content. So much of social selling really is about offering really high value content for free up front. Social selling isn't, hey, I'm going to connect with you and I'm going to send you an email. We all get these emails all the time. Like, I hope this message finds you well. That is not social selling. That's not what we're talking about. It's building up a relationship with a person over, many months, maybe years, until they're ready to buy. And you can't rush that decision. They'll be ready whenever their circumstances are right. So it's about long-term relationship building.
I think what you say, that element again also I think was in that post you say, is it's about really engaging in some way with the possible customer at some point. The challenge for many salespeople is we're just looking for the business now. We want to deal this quarter, this month, this year. They're not necessarily considering that it might be 2 or 3 years down track before that customer is able to buy. They may be in a long-term contract, but you can start establishing that relationship. I was at InfoSec this week. That is a cybersecurity kind of conference at Excel. A few thousand people there, I would have said, and maybe a couple of hundred exhibitors. And I did, whilst there, the people that I was speaking to, I kind of sussing them out on what they were doing on LinkedIn, how well they were utilizing it. I think virtually everybody in the sales community had LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but you get very polarized views. You get some of them are kind of saying not to see what it does, and also quite scathing when it comes to how they really might or should be using LinkedIn. And then you get people at the extreme opposite end, I'd like to think, where they are completely active, engaged LinkedIn users. I wonder, I don't know whether you'd see it, I wonder as to whether there's a demographic element to this as well. The slightly older salespeople, and I put myself in that category. I turned 60 this year, so I am that typical boomer. I only just make the boomer, born in 1964, only just. But I am of that era. I'll use the phrase, I think we spoke about it the other day, what I call blue suit, white shirt, red tie, BMW driving salespeople. I mean, I still have the Beamer in the garage. I don't often wear a suit, and I very rarely wear a tie nowadays. But for those of us of that era, which was predominantly, well, we might have been, we were basically a file, a fax, or a Rolodex, a desk, a telephone. We can use email. They are aware of LinkedIn and they use it, but not in the way that I think could be used. So I think maybe the younger people are, the more social media savvy they are. Do you see what I'm seeing there, that demographic difference?
Yeah, definitely. In the companies I've worked for in the past, there is that split in the sales organization that younger people, not by default, but a lot more younger people understand, kind of innately, because they've grown up with it, the power of social media, and it's worth using social media for building connections. Whereas I think for older people, it can be a bit cringy, it can be a bit difficult to kind of put yourself out there, right? You have to reveal some elements of yourself. People want to see your personality and know who you are, and that's maybe not something they're very comfortable with.
That's right. And in a face-to-face world, which again is the domain of the blue suit, white shirt, red tie, BMW driving B2B salesperson, part of that element even comes down to, they used to pay a lot of attention to what they would wear, the accoutrements, the moleskin notebook, the watch being worn. These were all signals to kind of present yourself in a certain way, even down to the pen. The amount of salespeople that used to have Mont Blanc pens as a signal. In many respects, I'm a successful person. You really should be listening to what it is that I have to say. Not as easy to present that and to get those elements across on social. So they said they're probably feeling kind of out of sorts. It is a very, very different domain, but one I'm convinced that we need to absolutely dive into. If at that InfoSec exhibition this week, if there were a few thousand people there, and people spend an awful lot of money exhibiting in those exhibition halls, and people spend a lot of time going to them. But the reality is LinkedIn is a 24-hour-a-day, 365 days of the year exhibition hall with access potentially to, is it 1 billion or is it 2 billion people?
It's 1 billion, 1 billion.
And also effectively free, and doesn't have the constraints on time. So you don't have to get on a train to get to LinkedIn. It's there, ready and waiting for you to participate in. So as you can tell, I've kind of had a bit of a road to Damascus experience recently. The light bulb has definitely gone off for me here. So listen, what I wanted to try and do, I've got a little puzzle for you. I want to try and pick your brains if I can, to get some of your social media strategy and advice. So we're going to do a screen share here at the moment. For those of you that are watching, you will now have the opportunity to see some wonderful whiteboarding, digital whiteboarding at work here. For those of you listening, I'm going to kind of describe what I'm presenting here to Lena. So if you can imagine in your mind's eye a kind of plain whiteboard that we'll start with here. What I really want to talk about here is recognition and trust, because it's one of the, again, from a sales perspective, from the B2B perspective, to get a customer interested, where they actually want to sign on the dotted line to buy something, there's got to be a lot of name recognition. They've got to trust you as the individual and as the company. So I'm just drawing a face here of what I will call a possible customer. So it depends on what it is that you're selling. But let's just imagine, as I said, in the center of the whiteboard, a picture of a face, and this is the possible customer. I'm just now going to have 3 kind of strands off that. The first thing, let me present it all, and then we'll kind of dive into it, Lena. First one is how would you recommend you kind of build the brand of your organization, the company in many respects, is one element to it. There's another element to it here where they may know of the company, but do they know of the product or the service or the solution that you're offering? So I'm going to ask, how would you use social media? And again, I hope you don't mind, LinkedIn in particular, because I think that is going to be the area of focus for our audience here. But how would you potentially use LinkedIn to educate your possible customers on the problem that exists out there that you think they may have, and then also the advantages or the benefits they may get from utilizing your service? And then the third strand to it is really with regards to the kind of representative. So the person, not a company, so not a company page posting, but as an individual, as a representative, maybe as a seller, maybe somebody as a reseller, and maybe it's a sales engineer. And then I'm going to add to it, because I think maybe this is an area that you're also very, very focused on, but it might be somebody other than that. It could be any employee within an organization, potentially even the CEO. So my question, the puzzle is, if you were confronted and said, how would you fix this? What would your recommendation be? How can I build brand? How can I promote a product or an offering that I might have, or a series of offerings that my company might have? And how also could I promote myself perhaps as a representative of a company? So big question, multi-part question. Lena, let's have your social selling strategic advice on what you would do here.
I like it that you put the potential customer in the middle, because that the customer or the audience needs to be at the heart of whatever you do on LinkedIn, right? If what you do, what any of these people do doesn't resonate, isn't relevant to the customer, it's not going to work. Let's start off with brand. The easiest mechanism for a brand to connect with their customers or potential customers is through a LinkedIn page, right? Most brands will have a LinkedIn page where they share some kind of content. This is tricky because LinkedIn pages only make up, I think it's 1.5% of your feed on LinkedIn. So if you're scrolling, let's say they make up 2%, right? And you have 100 posts, 2 of these posts will be from brands. You're barely visible. And that's obviously by design. LinkedIn wants companies to pay for their content to get out there. It's their business model. They need to make money. So this is a challenge. So just relying on this, on your company page where you post organic, unpaid for content, isn't necessarily going to cut through. But even if you do that, you need to focus on content that's really going to resonate with your audience. And that's where a lot of B2B companies go rogue, because they post a lot of stuff that you can tell they've kind of produced this content and someone's gone, we should put it on social. That's not right. It needs to be it needs to connect with the customer. Is it relevant for them? You need to have a content strategy that serves really good content, relevant content strands to that customer. And I just want to say something about the customer before I move on. But these potential customers, we know for B2B, 95% of your customers, of your potential buyers, are not ready to buy right now. That's the biggest chunk. You're not talking to people who are waiting to buy your product. You're talking to people who might not even know yet that they have a problem that your product or service can solve, right? So putting content out there that's purely about you as a solution provider, that's about your product, isn't going to resonate with these people. They don't necessarily even know yet that they might want to buy your product in the future. And they're certainly not going to buy it right now, even if they want to. So this is different, right? Then organic brand content becomes about how can you connect with these people on a different level? What do you have in common with them? How can you make them feel, right? What kind of content can you give them so that in 12 months, in 15 months, when they are ready to buy, they go, oh yeah, I can finally buy this tool. I remember these guys. We've been connected on LinkedIn. They're going to be first on my vendor list. They're going to be the first I'm going to need to check out. That's the entire point of brand marketing. connecting with people who are not ready to buy right now, will be so in many months, many years. So it's building up relationship with them and reminding them over and over again that
I'm
you're
just going to
there.
add on to the whiteboard here. Said, if you can imagine a kind of triangle here on a horizontal plane, it said, and the customer may be at this end. They don't know who you are, what you do, who your organization is. But you can actually just start building, and then bit by bit by bit over a period of time, eventually you get to the point which it could be a matter of days, it could be a matter of weeks, it could be a matter of months, maybe years. But by the time they get to this point here, they're very aware of who you are, what you do, as an organization. And I think it's about trying to maybe build that, I say, that awareness over time. And that's very much a kind of marketing. And maybe this is another area. I think that's very much a marketing perspective. Salespeople potentially a lot more focused on, as I said, on the month, the quarter, or maybe on this year. But the brand itself can build that, but also the reps as well. So super point. What else?
I think salespeople should care about this, because if you don't care about brand building, what do, right? You'll get some leads and you're trying to convert people who've never heard of you, who don't know what your solution is, who you're not ready to buy. You're trying to convert people, a completely cold audience. You're trying to convince them into buying. That isn't nice selling, right? That can't be pleasant. If you have to do 100 calls and maybe one person says, "Oh, right, I'll book a demo then just to get you off the phone," right?
Right.
Brand should deliver that pipeline. Building brand, that's your future revenue that you're building. That should make sales easier. That should bring down the cost of acquisition. That should increase your customer lifetime value. That should reduce churn if you do it well. But yeah, it's absolutely a long-term investment, but it pays off in the future. Just on brand, before we move on to kind of the product elements, having a LinkedIn page isn't your only kind of trick, right? There are other elements of social you could leverage that I don't really see B2B companies leverage. And for example, one of them is influencer. And I know we think of influencer marketing very much sort of in a B2C space where you have, I don't know, celebrities promoting something to their audience. But there is B2B influence marketing, and it works if you do it well. Again, it's kind of finding who are relevant people in your area, in your niche, who maybe already use your product or service, or who have the problems that your product or service could solve. And you have to build, and again, this is long term, you have to build a long-term relationship with them, right? If you work in B2B, what you're selling is probably not, a little product that you can just ship off to someone and then, they'll talk about it once. No, they want to use that product. They really want to understand it. But build up that relationship. And again, they become an ambassador for who you are and what you do. And then it's just more, basically, is getting in front of more people, in front of more relevant people.
And I think the salesperson can be an influencer. And if we look at, I use a lot of, I'm a chronic X or Twitter user, as probably a few hours a day. That's my entertainment. But the reality is, even the big names on there, and they are, let's say, the big influencers with huge audiences, they post regularly. They're posting many times a day, often. You don't become, I think, a social media or a social selling or a LinkedIn influencer by putting a post up once a month or once every 2 months. There needs to be some, not necessarily a constant presence, but a regular presence, but also then probably talking about different topics. So you might talk about brand in one of your posts or your company. You may talk about the various products or the solutions that you have. And you may actually, there's a lot of people that put quite personal content up. I know a lot of people shy away from that, but that does seem to work. So, I say, to be an influencer, I think you've got to have some kind of regular engagement, not necessarily even posts in. You could even be commenting, couldn't you? So you could post, you can comment, and it's the easiest thing of all to do, of course, is to just like something. But super. Okay, no, you're helping out a lot here, Lena. I'm sure not just for myself, for many of our audience as well. So how would what about can I promote products? Can I get specific on a kind of product solution, or how would that be done?
Again, on your organic feed, if you like, on your brand page, promoting products in detail doesn't make sense because that's not the right audience for it. Again, we talked about these are people not ready to buy right now. You obviously do talk about your product, but to go into detail and list your 10 product features and how you've improved that's not relevant to that audience. It's more about what problems do they have and how can they be solved, right? Also, rather than talking about it, show them, right? Where are your customer case studies? Have a webinar or a LinkedIn live session where you get your customer in and you have just an open conversation of how did we help you? What kind of learnings can other people get from this? Demonstrate, show them rather than just claim. I think that's
as you said, as you said, and I do see it increasingly. If the central figure here is a possible customer, one of the things you do see out there are actual current customers, short burst, 2-minute testimonial video, what this product did for our organization, and if there is some similarity between the possible customer and the existing customer, if they can see, that's a CTO, I'm a CTO as well, they're in financial services, I'm in financial services, and if that person basically says, we had this issue, and this issue, we used this service and we got this, and if they have the facts and figures to it, if they can put a kind of number to it, we saved $30 million over a 3-year period or whatever it is, then that's a very, very powerful way of getting that out there and educating the audience into the various products that you have and the various use cases, the various situations that may require that solution. So that's good too. I'm conscious of our time here, so I'm going to push you on to the representative. Tell us what else now then. Can you give some advice on this, specifically, if you don't mind, on the sellers? What could or should the B2B sellers be doing on LinkedIn? If you could give a kind of a checklist, kind of a list of things to do and maybe things not to do, what would you put on that list?
First of all, start with your profile. There's far too many sellers on LinkedIn who don't have even a proper profile picture, or I go to the profile and I have no idea what it is because they use LinkedIn to job hunt, right? That's how most people used to use LinkedIn to kind of go in and find new work. You need to optimize your profile for your audience. What would they find interesting when they come to see your page of what are you actually offering? So optimize your profile for your potential customer first. Secondly, think about who this customer is, right? What would they actually find interesting, relevant? What kind of content could you be sharing with them? This isn't just taking the content that you have as a seller from your company. It's about adding your thought leadership to it. It's what do you see in your industry that's changing? What are the kind of future trends? What are you seeing that the people you're a seller, you talk to people in this field all day long, ideally, right? What are you hearing? What could be relevant for other people? And then, talk about the product solution, not the product itself, but the product solution. This is what I hear. I've talked to X amount of people on this and everyone says, we can't do Y. This is how I would approach it. Share that knowledge, share the products, and then actively build your network. It's exactly what you said. Start commenting, find people who could be your potential customers and start engaging on their content so they start to get to know you. And only once you've built that relationship, send them a connection request and leave it at that. Or, also when people come to your profile, you can see who they are. Why wouldn't you want to connect with them? By all means, reach out to them and say, hey, I saw you come and checked out my profile. Can I ask what attracted you? What start that conversation, ask questions, and then get into it. Or, when you connect with someone, say, hey, I see you work in this space. I kind of do this. Do you want to chase anything I can help you with? Or offer value, offer help. Don't sell.
Yes.
Whatever you do, don't pitch.
And then a couple of things I have found here, putting an added note on when you want to connect with somebody, you give them a little bit of background on how you've come across them or whatever. I think that I'm really impressed by how many people will actually not only connect with that, but will actually come back with either a thumbs up or maybe nice to connect. They'll come back with a comment. And the other thing I think you can do before sending in that that network connect is you can engage with other people on LinkedIn just by you read their post and you can comment on the post. If you think about it, even if they've never heard of you again, the likelihood is if you comment on their post, they're going to see who you are. It's going to come up. They may be inclined to maybe go and have a look at your profile. So once again, comes back to make sure that your profile is optimized. And when they do go there, it's very clear about who you are and what you do. And on that, Lena, I'll just say oddly enough, I think I asked Dan O'Shaughnessy, who we both know. I asked him what he could tell, because I've got a slightly different situation, because I got so many strands to my offering. As I said, social selling is a kind of big area and interest for me at the moment. But I have my whiteboard business, which is really what I've done for the last 15 years. And now we have the podcast as well. Very difficult. So I would even say my profile, I'm going to ask you actually, do me a favor after this. Go on, you've probably had a look at it, but give me some notes and some feedback on it, because I said, I'm not sure it's clear as to what I do. People who know me will know what I do. But I thought your profile, the banner in particular, is really, really nice. Really nicely presented. And I think there's maybe 4 key bullet points on there of the different areas, the things that you can do. So it kind of just goes to show that. I did some work recently with a client, and they were saying that a lot of salespeople use LinkedIn predominantly as a kind of for job hunting. So there's stuff in their profile about I did 125% of target, and here I am on the President's Club, and I've done that. That's not necessarily going to be much interest to your customer if you come across really as even as a very successful salesperson. If you're just promoting yourself as somebody who delivers on a number, many customers, I would say, would probably be a little bit put off by that. But I think it is right. You go and you look at many salespeople's profiles, and they do put a lot of that there because it probably does bring in the recruitment consultants. But still, content creation, which I think is a major say fear in many respects for many sales, it's like they don't have any confidence in creating content. Just some quick guidelines on maybe what they could do. Planning, should it be automated, and so on. What are your any final thoughts you can give to our audience on that?
So the way the LinkedIn, we need to talk about the algorithm, because the algorithm on LinkedIn helps with content distribution. So you should be aware of how it works on a very rudimentary level. And it changes all the time. So by the time this podcast comes out, my advice might already be, outdated. However, typically on LinkedIn right now, when you post, engage on LinkedIn half an hour before and half an hour after you post, and you will typically get more reach, because the algorithm sees, oh, this person is active. We will show their post to more people. So yes, to planning content, schedule your content, but still be online just before and after your content's being published. And this will help you get more reach. So I think. And when you say
actually, are you saying that the algorithm dependent on seeing effectively that you're scrolling through does it even monitor? You're scrolling through your timeline. That is demonstrating somebody who is paying attention. We have their eyeballs. They're stopping. They're engaging with content. That gives you, say, a favored status in some respects. So if you then post something on LinkedIn, you get a little bit of an extra boost.
It does. The algorithm looks at 2 things, and this is also important for your content creation. It looks at dwell time. Do people stop to engage with this post? Like, do they stop in their scrowling? And how
was that long? Dwell time? Was that
dwell time? Yeah. And, do they engage with this post, right? And how, so you can influence that in how you present your content, right? If you have long form copy, if you write 5 paragraphs rather than 1, people will stay on your post longer if it's good. If you have a carousel or slideshow, however you want to call it, where people have to swipe through, people will spend longer on your post. If you have a multi-image post where people have to click on the plus sign, people will spend longer on your post. So you can influence that. The other element the algorithm looks in is engagement. Do people interact with it? Do they comment? The holy grail of LinkedIn is to get a comment within 2 hours of posting. That will boost your content. It will be, the algorithm goes, okay, this is immediately, important. We will show it to more people. So it influences in how you present your content. What an easy way of doing it is asking a question like, do you agree? Yes. Did I miss anything? What do you think? Right? That invites comment.
Yes.
And also,
I think.
Sorry, I was just
Lena, I was just going to say. Over to you.
I was just going to say, if you go out and comment on other people's stuff, and then you post, often they will go and check out your profile, right? They'll go, I'll see if, and then they'll comment on your post. So
yeah, the point I was going to make there, and it is connected to it, is for many years I was a LinkedIn a premium account holder, and one of the reasons that I took the premium account was so that I could have that kind of incognito mode, which meant that I could go stalking in effect, couldn't I? I could look at profiles and it wouldn't show who I was. And I thought there was an advantage to that. If I was researching a customer and looking, I didn't necessarily want them to see my fingerprints or anything there. But again, as part of my light bulb road to Damascus experience here, I've changed that. I've now kind of, I've now opened that out, and so now people can see when I'm looking at their profiles. And I think as a consequence, I think LinkedIn just now sees me as a better citizen. Do you know what I mean? More of I'm now engaging. I'm engaging in the way that they want me to engage. I'm putting more content. I'm engaging with more, and I'm open and honest about what I'm doing on there. And I think that act alone also has boosted the reach of the posts. Last point on that, then. It's a Friday today that we're recording. I don't know what day of the week we'll put the episode out. But is Friday just a rather mediocre day on LinkedIn? It seems very slow. I could post something today, and it hardly gets anywhere. Your thoughts?
It is. It's not you. It's LinkedIn. I think Monday and Friday are quiet days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are busier. Interestingly, the weekend can be good, right? Only diehard LinkedIn people are on at the weekends, like me. But they will then see the content, right? Because fewer people are posting. So weekend can work if you have a good audience, if you have a good network. And also posting first thing in the morning when people get ready for work, or maybe they're commuting, or they turn on their computer and they look at LinkedIn first thing in the morning. That can be a good time to post. So any time from like 8 to 10 may be a good time. But
or even earlier. I think you were on earlier.
Yeah. We talk about the algorithm a lot. You should always write for your audience, but then kind of optimize for the algorithm, right? Just optimizing for the algorithm and putting gimmicky posts out there to try to hack the algorithm is never going to work. It's about writing really good content and building up a community, building up a network, and then optimize for the algorithm on top of that.
Fantastic. And again, we'll kind of wind up here, but as a last piece of advice, perhaps also to our audience here, I would really recommend, if you like what Lena has had to say and you're interested in this social selling kind of area, this way of working, then engage with the likes of Lena and the people within Lena's social selling community. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people out there with an awful lot to say, who are doing exactly what Lena says in terms of they're putting a lot of ideas and a lot of content in their in their posts, and it's, as I say, freely available. But you should explore their networks, and I think from my own perspective here, it's wonderful to come across people like yourself and to have the opportunity to. Even without our conversation here today, to learn from your experience, your 15 odd years of kind of social media strategy, Say you've got plenty of posts out there that give lots of tips, techniques, do's and don'ts, and whatever else. So, Lena, we have to wrap up. I think Pete, the producer, will want to keep this relatively tight as an episode. We've probably overrun a little bit, but I've overrun my mouth a little bit on this one, as I have a terrible tendency to do. So, apologies for over talking at times. Fantastic to have you on. Thank you ever so much for your insight. I'll be coming back to you again at some point in the not too distant future, I think. And thank you once again, Lena.
No, thank you for having me. Thanks.